What you are about to hear is a work of fiction. The people, places, and events depicted in this story are products of the author's imagination or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual individuals, living or deceased, or to real situations is purely coincidental. These stories may explore themes of crime, injustice, and human suffering. While fictional, they reflect real emotions and difficult truths that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
They're moving faster than we thought. They want Rachel to sign everything over tomorrow during the renewal ceremony. We need to move now. Claire pressed herself against the cool stone wall of the meditation garden, her heart hammering as she whispered urgently into the tiny microphone hidden in her silver pendant. The ocean waves crashed below the clifftop retreat, masking her voice from any listening ears. In less than 12 hours, her sister would lose everything if Claire couldn't stop it. Before we go on, consider subscribing to the channel to be notified as new stories are published. Please let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know just how far our stories reach. But this story begins 3 weeks earlier, in Rachel Sinclair's cramped apartment 2 hours inland, where unopened self-help books gathered dust on every surface like monuments to failed hope. Rachel sat on her unmade bed, staring at her phone. Her sister Claire's contact photo smiled back at her, a picture from happier times. Before the divorce, before everything fell apart. She should call. Claire always knew what to say, but Rachel felt like such a failure, such a burden. The apartment told the story of 6 months of barely surviving. Unopened mail formed precarious towers on the kitchen counter. A yoga mat leaned against the wall, still in its plastic wrapper, another attempt at healing that never quite began. The expensive gym membership she'd bought in January had expired unused in April. Her phone buzzed. Claire, as if sensing her thoughts. "Hey Rach, just checking in. How are you holding up?" Rachel forced brightness into her voice. "I'm fine, really. Just taking things one day at a time." "That doesn't sound like fine to me. Have you been getting out? Seeing people?" "I have therapy tomorrow," Rachel offered weakly. "Good. Dr. Brennan is helping, right?" "I guess. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just broken, you know? Like maybe this is just who I am now." Claire's voice sharpened with protective concern. "Don't say that. You went through 15 years of marriage with David, then discovered he was stealing from your business accounts. Anyone would need time to heal." "Dad's money is still just sitting there," Rachel said suddenly. "Sometimes I think about what he'd say if he knew I was wasting the inheritance he worked so hard to leave me." "You're not wasting anything. You're recovering. There's a difference." After they hung up, Rachel felt marginally better, but the apartment still felt like a tomb. She needed help, real help. Maybe Dr. Brennan would have some ideas. Dr. Patricia Brennan's office felt like a sanctuary, all warm lighting and soft textures. Rachel had been seeing her for 4 months, ever since Claire insisted she needed professional support. "You mentioned feeling stuck again," Dr. Brennan said, her pen poised over her legal pad. "Tell me more about that." Rachel shifted in the leather chair. "It's like I'm trapped in amber. I know I should be moving forward, but every day feels exactly the same. I wake up, I survive, I go back to sleep. Have you considered that maybe your current environment is part of the problem? Sometimes we need to physically remove ourselves from the space where trauma occurred to truly heal." "You mean like a vacation?" Dr. Brennan smiled. "Something more intentional than that. I had a patient who experienced remarkable results at a very exclusive wellness retreat. It's quite selective, very holistic. They focus on deep emotional healing." Rachel felt a flutter of something she'd almost forgotten hope. "What kind of retreat?" "It's called Awakening Shores. The director, Dr. Jonathan Harlow, is brilliant. They work with people who've experienced significant life transitions. The waiting list is usually months long, but..." She paused as if considering. "I might be able to make a call." "I don't know." "That sounds expensive." "Rachel, you have the resources. Your father wanted you to use that inheritance to build a better life. What if this could be the key to unlocking your healing?" When Rachel left the session with Dr. Harlow's business card, she felt lighter than she had in months. Maybe this was the answer she'd been searching for. 2 days later, Rachel's Honda Civic crunched over the gravel driveway of Awakening Shores, and her breath caught. The retreat perched on a dramatic clifftop, all glass and natural wood that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. Meditation gardens cascaded down toward the ocean, and the main building's floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the afternoon sun like golden mirrors. A woman with flowing auburn hair and a serene smile approached her car. "Rachel, I'm Maya Thornton, your life integration coach. Welcome to your new beginning." Maya's warmth felt genuine as she helped Rachel with her bags. "Dr. Brennan spoke so highly of you. She said you're ready for deep transformation." "I hope so," Rachel said, suddenly feeling underdressed in her jeans and sweater among Maya's flowing linen ensemble. "Trust the process," Maya said softly. "Dr. Harlow has helped so many women reclaim their power. You're going to love him." The interior of the main building took Rachel's breath away. Soaring ceilings, natural materials, and the constant sound of the ocean created an atmosphere of peace she hadn't felt since childhood summers at her grandmother's cottage. "Rachel Sinclair." She turned to find a tall man with silver-streaked hair and remarkably kind eyes approaching. Everything about Dr. Jonathan Harlow radiated calm authority, from his casual linen shirt to his firm, warm handshake. "Dr. Harlow, thank you for making room for me here. Patricia spoke very highly of you. She said you're at a crucial juncture in your healing journey." His eyes seemed to see straight through to her soul. "I can sense the weight you're carrying. The shame that isn't yours to bear." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. How did he know? "Come, let me show you to your accommodation, and then we'll join the others for our evening gathering." Rachel's room was simple but elegant, with a private deck overlooking the ocean. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe deeply. The evening gathering took place in a circular room with cushioned seating arranged around a small fire pit. 8 other residents sat in quiet conversation, all women, all with the same slightly shell-shocked look Rachel recognized from her own mirror. "Tonight we welcome Rachel," Dr. Harlow said, his voice carrying easily through the space. "She joins us on the journey from material attachment to spiritual freedom." An older woman with perfectly styled gray hair smiled at Rachel. "I'm Grace Whitfield. I've been here 3 months, and I can honestly say it's changed my life completely." "3 months?" Rachel asked. "I thought this was a 2-week program." Grace laughed. "Oh, my dear, healing doesn't follow a calendar. When you find true peace, why would you ever want to leave?" Dr. Harlow nodded approvingly. "Grace understands what many people struggle with, that authentic transformation requires us to release our grip on the illusions that once defined us. Money, possessions, even relationships that no longer serve our highest good." Next to Grace sat another woman with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I'm Margaret Connolly," she said, her voice carrying the warm authority of someone used to addressing classrooms. "I was a high school English teacher for 35 years before I found my true calling here." "Margaret lost her husband 6 months ago," Dr. Harlow said gently. "She came to us drowning in grief and the burden of managing his estate. Now look at her, radiant with purpose." Margaret beamed. "I spent my whole career teaching young people about life, but I never understood it myself until I came here. Dr. Harlow showed me that my attachment to Robert's memory was keeping me trapped in the past. Once I let go of the house, the insurance money, all those material anchors to grief, I finally found peace. The beautiful thing," Grace continued, "is how free you feel once you let go. I've simplified my entire life. No more managing investments or worrying about material things. It's incredibly liberating." Rachel felt a warm glow spreading through her chest. Maybe this was exactly what she needed, a complete fresh start. The next morning, Rachel woke to gentle chimes, calling residents to the financial cleansing workshop. She joined the circle of women in the same meditation room, now flooded with golden morning light. "Money?" Dr. Harlow began, his voice hypnotically smooth. is the root of so much suffering. Close your eyes and imagine your relationship with wealth as a physical presence sitting on your chest. Rachel obeyed, feeling the familiar anxiety tighten around her ribs whenever she thought about her father's inheritance, the responsibility, the guilt, the fear of making the wrong choice. Feel how heavy it is, Dr. Harlow continued. How it restricts your breathing, your movement, your ability to connect with your authentic self. A woman to Rachel's left began to cry softly. "I can feel it," she whispered. "It's crushing me." "Share with us, Diane," Dr. Harlow encouraged gently. "What does money represent in your life?" "Control," Diane sobbed. "My ex-husband controlled me through money for 20 years. Even now, with the divorce settlement, I feel like it's still controlling me. I'm terrified to spend it, terrified to invest it, terrified to lose it." Other women nodded in recognition. Maya moved silently around the circle, taking careful notes on a legal pad. "Rachel," Dr. Harlow's voice drew her attention. "What's coming up for you?" Rachel hesitated, then found herself speaking. "My father worked 2 jobs his whole life to leave me something. He died of a heart attack at 62, probably from the stress. Now I have this inheritance sitting in my account, and I feel like I'm failing him by not using it right." "How much?" Maya asked softly, her pen poised. "About 400,000, Rachel admitted, immediately regretting the specificity. Dr. Harlow nodded knowingly. "The dead cannot heal through our financial decisions, Rachel. Your father's love wasn't conditional on your investment choices. Can you feel how his anxiety about security has become your anxiety about worthiness?" Another resident, a woman in her 50s, broke down completely. "My late husband's business insurance," she wept, $700,000. "I thought it would make me feel secure, but instead, I feel like I'm drowning. Every time I look at the bank statement, I see his death. I see blood money." Maya's pen moved rapidly across her pad, capturing every detail, every vulnerability shared in the sacred circle. That night, Rachel called Claire from her room. "Rach, how's the spa treating you?" "It's not really a spa. It's more like a spiritual awakening center." "Claire, I think this might actually help. Dr. Harlow is amazing, and there's this woman Grace who's been here for months, and she's just radiating peace." Something in Claire's voice sharpened. "Months? I thought you were going for 2 weeks." "Well, it's flexible. You stay as long as you need to heal." Rachel found herself unconsciously echoing Maya's words from their afternoon session. "And how much is this costing?" "It's not about money. It's about investing in my healing. Dr. Harlow says that when we cling too tightly to material things, we block our spiritual growth." Claire was quiet for a long moment. "Rachel, that doesn't sound like you." "Maybe that's the point. Maybe the old me wasn't working." After they hung up, Claire stared at her phone, unease crawling up her spine. She'd taught high school psychology for 15 years, and something about this conversation set off every alarm bell she had. The phrasing was wrong. Rachel had always been practical about money, even after the divorce. And since when did her sister use terms like spiritual growth? She opened her laptop and searched for Awakening Shores Wellness Retreat. The website was beautifully designed, but oddly sparse on details. No reviews on major travel sites. No mention in wellness magazines. For a supposedly exclusive retreat, it had remarkably little online presence. But what bothered Claire most was a childhood memory that surfaced unbidden. She and Rachel, 8 and 11, had developed a code for when one of them was in trouble but couldn't speak freely. If Rachel ever said maybe that's the point in a conversation about herself, it meant she needed help but couldn't say so directly. The next morning, Claire tried calling Rachel again, but Maya answered her sister's phone. "Oh, Claire, Rachel speaks of you so fondly. She's in a session right now, but she wanted me to tell you how grateful she is for your support of her healing journey. I'd like to speak with her directly." "Of course. We just ask that family contact happen during designated hours, so we don't interrupt the therapeutic process. How about this evening at 7? When 7 o'clock came, Rachel sounded different again, more distant, speaking in the same flowing language Maya used. "I'm discovering so much about myself," Rachel said. "Did you know I've been carrying Dad's financial anxiety my whole life? Dr. Harlow helped me see that my attachment to his inheritance is actually blocking my grief work. Rachel, Dad wanted you to have financial security. But what if security comes from letting go, not holding on?" Grace showed me the papers she signed a liberation document. She transferred her assets to the Retreats Foundation, and now she doesn't have to worry about any of it anymore. She's completely free. Claire's blood ran cold. "Rachel, promise me you won't sign anything without talking to me first." "Why would I need permission to heal myself?" That night, Claire barely slept. She'd been through her own messy divorce 5 years ago, and she recognized the signs of someone being manipulated in a vulnerable state. The next day, she drove to Rachel's apartment and used her spare key to check the mail. Mixed in with the credit card offers and utility bills, she found something that made her stomach drop: a letter from Tom, Rachel's ex-husband, asking about someone claiming to represent Rachel who had called requesting detailed financial information. Claire immediately called Tom. What exactly did they want to know? Everything. Bank accounts, the inheritance from your dad, even my alimony obligations. They said Rachel was working with a financial advisor at some retreat, but it seemed weird that she wouldn't handle it herself. "Tom, I think Rachel's in trouble." Claire's research that evening was more focused. She found Dr. Jonathan Harlow's name in a psychology licensing database. His license had been revoked 3 years ago for boundary violations and financial exploitation of patients. She found the investigators' report about Awakening Shores, filed by Grace Whitfield's son, mysteriously withdrawn a month later. Most disturbing, she found Dr. Patricia Brennan's name on the retreat's professional partnership page, listed as a referring specialist. A memory surfaced: their father on his deathbed, gripping Claire's hand. "Promise me you'll always look after your sister," he'd whispered. She trusts too easily. She sees the good in everyone. That's beautiful, but it makes her vulnerable. Claire had promised, and she'd meant it, but she'd never imagined anything like this. Claire called Jimmy Park, a former student who'd gone into private investigation. "I need a favor, Jimmy. A big one." "Anything for my favorite teacher. What's up?" "I need a new identity, and I need it fast." The next evening, Claire met Jimmy at a coffee shop downtown, along with Detective Angela Rodriguez, a woman in her mid-40s with sharp, intelligent eyes. "I've been investigating complaints about Awakening Shores for 6 months, Rodriguez explained, keeping her voice low. "We've had 4 families report suspicious financial activity, but every victim withdrew their complaint after what they called private settlements." "That's the pattern," Jimmy added, pulling out a tablet. "I've found 6 other women who've been through that place in the past 2 years. All wealthy, all recently divorced or widowed, all ended up signing over significant assets." Rodriguez leaned forward. "The problem is, these people appear to be signing documents willingly. Without evidence of active fraud or coercion, I can't get a warrant." "What do you need?" Claire asked. "Evidence of deception, manipulation, or any illegal activity happening inside that facility. Recordings would be ideal." Jimmy showed Claire the equipment: a silver pendant with a hidden camera, earrings with recording devices, even a lipstick case that could capture hours of audio. "The emergency beacon is in this bracelet," he explained, demonstrating a tiny button hidden among decorative stones. "Press it, and Detective Rodriguez gets an immediate alert with your GPS location." "You sure about this?" Rodriguez asked. "These people sound dangerous." "My sister's in there. I'm not leaving her." 2 days later, Claire stood in her bedroom, practicing her new persona in the mirror. Sarah Lawson, recently divorced from a tech executive in Oregon, dealing with anxiety and trust issues, inherited $3 million from her grandmother's estate. Jimmy had created an entire digital footprint for Sarah's social media accounts, fake therapy records, even planted references to her in Portland society pages. "Remember," Jimmy said as he fitted her with the nearly invisible recording devices. "You're vulnerable but not stupid. You need healing, but you're also cautious about money after your divorce." Got it. And Claire? He looked serious. If anything feels wrong, if you think you're in danger, hit that beacon immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Claire, now, Sarah arrived at Awakening Shores on a foggy morning, her heart racing as Maya greeted her with the same warm smile. "Sarah, we're so excited you're here. Dr. Harlow has been looking forward to meeting you." Claire had studied the retreat's language extensively, but sitting across from Dr. Harlow, she understood how Rachel had been swept away. His presence was magnetic, his attention laser-focused. When he spoke about her journey toward authentic self, she could feel the pull of his words. "Patricia mentioned your recent trauma around trust," he said, and Claire's blood chilled. Dr. Brennan had shared detailed notes about Sarah's fictional therapy sessions. Betrayal by someone we love leaves us questioning our ability to judge character. "I feel like I can't trust my own instincts anymore," Claire said, playing the role while her mind raced. "That's exactly why you're here. We'll help you reclaim your inner wisdom." That evening, Claire spotted Rachel in the meditation garden. Her sister looked different, thinner, with an almost ethereal quality that worried Claire more than any tears would have. "Rachel?" Rachel turned, and for a split second, recognition flashed in her eyes before confusion took over. "I'm sorry. Do we know each other?" "I'm Sarah Lawson. I just arrived today." "Oh, welcome. This place is magical. Dr. Harlow says I'm making breakthrough progress." Claire wanted to grab her sister and run, but she forced herself to stay in character. "You seem so peaceful. How long have you been here?" 3 weeks, but it feels like a lifetime. I'm finally understanding what Dr. Harlow means about material attachment being a form of spiritual poverty. "That's beautiful," Claire said, her heart breaking. Over the next few days, Claire witnessed the full scope of the manipulation, the herbal wellness teas that left residents slightly drowsy and compliant. The sleep deprivation disguised as dawn enlightenment sessions that began at 4 a.m., the constant messaging about releasing material attachments, while Dr. Harlow wore a Rolex and drove a Tesla. Most disturbing was what she overheard during a staff meeting she wasn't supposed to witness. Hidden behind the kitchen door during her assigned meal prep, she heard Maya talking to another counselor about a resident who'd tried to leave the previous month. "Jennifer required intensive intervention," Maya said casually. 3 days in the therapeutic isolation wing helped her work through her resistance. "The families always ask questions when we extend stays," the other woman replied. "That's what the settlement agreements are for, much cheaper than dealing with legal complications." Claire's blood ran cold. The retreat had a locked wing she'd noticed, but not questioned a section of the building marked private therapeutic suites that required a keycard to access. She found Grace crying quietly in the garden one afternoon. "Are you okay?" Grace looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "I want to go home, but Jonathan says that's my fear talking. And honestly, I don't know if I have a home anymore. I signed everything over to the foundation." "Everything?" "My house, my investments, my late husband's pension." Jonathan explained that material wealth was keeping me trapped in grief, but now I feel so lost. Grace lowered her voice to a whisper. "There was another woman here, Jennifer. She tried to leave last month, said she'd changed her mind about the program. They put her in isolation for breakthrough therapy. When she finally came out, she was different, compliant. She signed her papers the next day." "Where is she now?" "Gone. They said she completed her transformation and moved to a sister community in Costa Rica. But her daughter called here looking for her, and Maya told her Jennifer had requested no contact during her integration period." That night, Claire's hidden camera captured Maya bragging to another staff member about their acquisition rate. "Dr. Harlow's hit on the perfect formula," Maya said, wine-making her careless. "Target them when they're vulnerable, love-bomb them until they're dependent, then gradually introduce the financial liberation concepts. We've processed over 4 million this year alone. What about the ones who resist? Isolation protocols. We make them feel like they're failing at their own healing if they don't embrace complete surrender. Amazing how 3 days alone with just water and meditation can help someone see reason. Claire's hands shook as she transferred the recording to the cloud storage account Jimmy had set up. The next morning brought devastating news. The renewal ceremony was being moved up. Tonight, under the full moon, we'll celebrate the spiritual rebirth of our most committed residents. Dr. Harlow announced, Rachel, Grace, and Margaret have reached the final stage of their liberation journey. Claire cornered Maya during lunch prep. I'd love to participate in the ceremony too. Oh, Sarah, you're not quite ready for that level of commitment yet, but don't worry, your time will come. That afternoon, Claire found the administrative office unlocked and slipped inside. Her hidden camera captured files on every resident, including detailed psychological profiles and financial assessments. Dr. Brennan had provided extensive notes on Rachel's inheritance, her divorce trauma, and her susceptibility to authority figures during emotional crisis. The files were horrifying in their detail. Each resident had a complete dossier, including estimated net worth, family relationships, psychological vulnerabilities, and a phase schedule, showing how they would be systematically broken down over time. Phase 1, love bombing and initial trust building. Phase 2, isolation from outside influences and dependency creation. Phase 3, financial liberation, preparation, and documentation. She photographed bank records showing payments to Dr. Brennan, $10,000 for each successful acquisition, and evidence of money being moved to offshore accounts. A ledger showed the retreat had processed over $6 million in the past 18 months alone. As she worked, her blood turned to ice, reading notes about acceleration protocols for residents whose families were becoming problematic. A document titled Emergency Protocols outlined procedures for dealing with disruptive outside influences, including temporary isolation of residents and immediate asset transfer if families became legally threatening. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Claire quickly pocketed the documents she'd photographed and slipped out through the side door, her heart hammering. The ceremony began at sunset, with residents gathered in white robes around a bonfire on the cliff. Claire watched from the garden as Dr. Harlow spoke about transcending material bonds. Rachel stood with Grace and Margaret, each holding thick legal documents. Tonight, you complete your transformation, Dr. Harlow intoned. By releasing your attachment to worldly possessions, you embrace your true spiritual nature. Claire activated her emergency beacon, sending Jimmy and Detective Rodriguez the predetermined signal. But as she crept closer to record the proceedings, Maya spotted the red recording light on her hidden camera. Sarah, what's that on your necklace? Time slowed as Maya reached for the device. In desperation, Claire grabbed Maya's wrist. Don't. Dr. Harlow, Maya shouted. She's recording us. The spell broke like shattered glass. Dr. Harlow's serene mask slipped, revealing cold calculation underneath. Ladies, it seems we have someone among us who's been sent by the very forces trying to keep you trapped. That's my sister, Rachel said suddenly, her voice cutting through the confusion. For the first time in weeks, she sounded like herself. That's Claire. Rachel, they're trying to steal your inheritance. Claire said quickly, Dr. Brennan is getting kickbacks for sending them vulnerable patients. Look at the documents you're signing over everything Dad left you. Dr. Harlow stepped forward, his voice taking on a hypnotic quality. Rachel, this is exactly what we discussed in your breakthrough session. You said yourself that your sister represents the old patterns of fear and scarcity that have kept you trapped. Don't let her pull you back into spiritual poverty. For a moment, Rachel wavered, the weeks of psychological manipulation warring with her deeper instincts. Then Claire spoke quietly, using words only her sister would understand. Remember when we used to hide in the old oak tree when Dad was stressed about money? You made up that story about tree spirits who protected people from worry. You said the magic words were sisters forever. Rachel's eyes cleared, the fog of manipulation lifting. "Sisters forever?" she whispered, then louder. "Number Claire would never hurt me. She's protected me my whole life." Grace suddenly spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. "She's right. I've been here 3 months, and I haven't felt peace. I've felt empty, hollow. Like something was eating me from the inside." Margaret, a 60-year-old former teacher, threw her documents into the fire. "I want to call my daughter, right now." Dr. Harlow's composure cracked entirely. "Maya, initiate containment protocols. These women are clearly having a group psychological break." "Containment protocols?" Claire challenged. "Sometimes people need protection from their own self-destructive impulses," he said, nodding to 2 large men who'd appeared from the shadows. "We have procedures for residents experiencing acute resistance to their healing process." But Detective Rodriguez's voice cut through the night. "Nobody move! This is the police!" Officers swarmed the ceremony site as Dr. Harlow made one last attempt to maintain his facade. "Officers, these women are patients experiencing a therapeutic crisis. I'm a licensed—" "No, you're not," Detective Rodriguez said, cuffing him. "Your license was revoked 3 years ago for financial exploitation. Dr. Jonathan Harlow, you're under arrest for fraud, elder abuse, unlawful imprisonment, and conspiracy to commit grand theft." Maya tried to run but was caught at the tree line, while Grace sobbed with relief in Margaret's arms. 3 weeks later, Rachel sat in a circle of folding chairs in a community center meeting room. The fluorescent lighting was harsh after the retreat's carefully crafted ambiance, but somehow it felt more honest. "My name is Rachel, and I was a victim of financial fraud, disguised as spiritual healing." The support group leader, a woman in her 50s who radiated genuine warmth, nodded encouragingly. "Thank you for sharing, Rachel. Would you like to tell the group about your experience?" Rachel looked around the circle, 12 other women and 3 men, all survivors of various scams. Some had fallen victim to romance cons, others to investment fraud or fake charities. All bore the same slightly shell-shocked expression she recognized from her own mirror. "I lost almost everything to someone I trusted," Rachel continued. "If my sister hadn't risked everything to save me, I'd have nothing left. But I've learned that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about using the experience to help others." A woman across the circle raised her hand tentatively. "I'm new here. I just escaped from a similar retreat in Arizona. How do you trust yourself again?" Rachel smiled, feeling the warmth of purpose flowing through her. "You start small. You lean on people who've proven their love through actions, not words. And you remember that the fact that someone was able to manipulate you doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're human." After the meeting, an elderly man approached her. "I'm Grace Whitfield's son, Robert. I wanted to thank you personally. Mom's doing so much better now. She's living with us, seeing a real therapist, and she actually laughed yesterday for the first time in months." "How is she handling the financial situation?" "We're working with lawyers on the class action suit. Apparently, Dr. Harlow's network spans 5 states, and they've identified over 30 victims. The authorities think they can recover some of the assets." "I'm so glad," Rachel said. "Give Grace my love." Another woman approached a middle-aged survivor from the group. "Rachel, I wanted you to know that hearing your story tonight gave me hope. I've been blaming myself for falling for a romance scam, but you're right, it doesn't make us weak. It makes us human." A younger man joined them. "My grandmother lost everything to a fake charity. I wish someone like you had been around to help her see she wasn't alone." Rachel felt tears of gratitude rather than shame. That's exactly why we're here, so no one has to face this alone. The next morning, Rachel stood outside a modest office building, smoothing her navy blazer one final time. The sign read, "Victim Advocacy Network Fraud Prevention and Recovery Services." She'd turned down 3 marketing positions with higher salaries to work here. Some decisions weren't about money. Inside, her new colleagues greeted her with warm smiles and genuine respect. Her supervisor, Janet, a woman who'd survived a Ponzi scheme that cost her retirement fund, shook her hand firmly. We're so excited to have you, Rachel. Your experience gives you insights that textbooks can't teach. Thank you for taking a chance on me. I know my background is unconventional for a fraud prevention counselor. Unconventional? Janet laughed. It's exactly what we need. Who better to help someone recognize manipulation than someone who's been through it themselves? Rachel's first consultation was with a woman in her 40s whose voice shook as she described an investment opportunity presented by her church's financial advisor. The thing is, the woman said, I know something feels wrong, but everyone I trust is telling me it's a good idea. How do I know if I'm being paranoid or if my instincts are right? Rachel leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Tell me about the pressure you're feeling. Are they giving you time to think, or do they need an answer right away? Well, he said the opportunity closes Friday, and it's already Wednesday. He keeps saying things like, God doesn't give second chances and your faith is being tested. Rachel nodded knowingly. That urgency is a classic red flag. Legitimate investments don't disappear in 48 hours, and using your faith to pressure financial decisions, that's spiritual manipulation. As she helped the woman identify the red flags, the urgency, the pressure to keep the opportunity secret, the way legitimate questions were deflected with religious language, Rachel felt something she hadn't experienced in months: complete confidence in her purpose. You mentioned he wants you to keep this private from your family? He said they might not understand the spiritual significance of the investment. That sometimes God calls us to trust Him more than family advice. That's isolation, Rachel explained. Legitimate advisors encourage you to get second opinions from people you trust. Scammers try to cut you off from outside perspectives. By the end of the session, the woman's relief was palpable. I feel so much clearer now. I was starting to think I was crazy for having doubts. Trust those instincts, Rachel said firmly. Your intuition was protecting you. Later that evening, Rachel and Claire sat on the couch in Rachel's now bright apartment, pizza boxes scattered around them as they planned their long overdue sister vacation. I still can't believe I almost signed everything away, Rachel said, shaking her head. You were grieving and vulnerable. They're experts at exploiting that. But I should have seen through it sooner. I mean, the red flags were everywhere once you pointed them out. Claire turned serious. Rach, stop. You were dealing with a sophisticated psychological operation run by someone who used to be a licensed therapist. He knew exactly how to exploit trauma responses. The fact that you eventually saw through it, even in that environment, shows how strong you really are. Speaking of seeing through things, how's the real job going? Claire asked with a grin. Actually, it's perfect. Turns out nearly losing everything to a con artist is considered excellent qualification for helping other people avoid the same trap. Rachel laughed. And for the first time since her divorce, her laughter sounded entirely free of shadows. I helped a woman today who was being pressured by her church's financial advisor. She reminded me so much of myself 3 weeks ago, smart, capable, but second-guessing her own instincts because someone in authority was telling her she was wrong to be cautious. Did you tell her about the retreat? I shared what I learned about manipulation tactics. It's amazing how universal they are, whether it's fake spiritual healing, romance scams, or investment fraud. The playbook is always the same. Isolate, flatter, create urgency, and make the victim feel like their doubts are character flaws. Claire smiled proudly. Look at you, turning your worst experience into your superpower. You know what we need? Claire said. A real retreat. Just us. A beach house, terrible movies, and absolutely no gurus allowed. Deal, but I'm buying with Dad's money, spent exactly the way he'd want, taking care of the people who matter most. And maybe some really good junk food, Claire added. I'm thinking we need to counteract all that forced wellness with some aggressive unwellness. Definitely. No herbal teas, no meditation chimes, and absolutely no discussions about releasing material attachments. They both laughed, and Rachel felt a lightness she hadn't experienced since before her marriage fell apart. As they planned their guilt-free sister vacation, the television news played softly in the background. Dr. Harlow and Maya faced federal charges in multiple states. Dr. Brennan's license had been permanently revoked, and she faced criminal charges for her role in the conspiracy. The class action lawsuit had grown to include 47 victims across 6 states, with authorities working to recover over $12 million in stolen assets. 47 victims, Rachel repeated quietly, the number hitting her like a physical blow. 47 families who went through what we did. But look what you're doing now, Claire reminded her. You're helping make sure there won't be 48. The news report continued with an interview from Detective Rodriguez. These sophisticated operations specifically target people during their most vulnerable moments after divorce, death of a spouse, or major life transitions. They use legitimate therapeutic language to mask what is essentially organized theft. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from Grace, saw the news about the lawsuit, wanted you to know I'm testifying. My son says they've frozen Harlow's accounts and found money hidden in the Cayman Islands. There might actually be hope for getting some of it back. Grace is testifying, Rachel told Claire, showing her the text. How's she doing? Better. She's living with her son's family now, and she told me last week that she's starting to feel like herself again. She said the hardest part wasn't losing the money, it was feeling stupid for trusting them. That's exactly what they count on, Claire said angrily. They make people ashamed to come forward by convincing them it was their fault. Rachel's phone rang. It was Janet from her new job. Rachel, I hope you don't mind me calling so late, but we just got a call from someone who escaped from a retreat in Nevada that sounds exactly like what you described. She specifically asked to speak with someone who'd been through something similar. Would you be willing to take her call tomorrow? Of course, Rachel said without hesitation. What's her situation? Similar to yours recent widow, they had her convinced to sign over her husband's life insurance. But she got spooked when they wouldn't let her call her daughter and literally climbed out a window to escape. She climbed out a window? Second floor. She said she suddenly realized that if she really was healing, why did she feel more trapped every day instead of more free? After hanging up, Rachel felt the familiar surge of purpose mixed with anger. There's another one, Claire. In Nevada. A widow who escaped through a window. Jesus, how many of these places are there? Too many. But you know what? Each person who gets out, each person who comes forward, makes it harder for them to operate. A year later, Rachel stood at a podium in a packed auditorium, looking out at an audience of law enforcement officers, therapists, and social workers attending a conference on financial elder abuse. The retreat promised me healing, she began, her voice steady and clear. What they delivered was systematic psychological manipulation designed to separate me from my support system and my inheritance. But here's what they didn't count on. They didn't count on my sister's love, and they didn't count on survivors who refused to stay silent. The audience was riveted as Rachel described the sophisticated nature of the operation, the use of legitimate therapeutic language to mask exploitation, and the importance of listening to family members who express concern about sudden personality changes in their loved ones. The most insidious part, Rachel continued, is how they convinced us that our doubts were spiritual failures, that questioning them meant we weren't committed to our own healing. They weaponized our desire to get better against us. After her presentation, she was surrounded by people sharing their own stories or asking for advice about family members they suspected were being exploited. A young man approached her with tears in his eyes. My grandmother disappeared into one of these places 6 months ago. She won't return my calls, and when I tried to visit, they said she was in intensive therapy and couldn't see family. What do I do? Rachel handed him Detective Rodriguez's card. Call her immediately, and whatever you do, don't stop trying to reach your grandmother. Even if she seems different when you talk to her, even if she says things that don't sound like her, keep calling. That connection to the outside world might be the lifeline she needs. That evening, Claire picked Rachel up from the conference center, beaming with pride. How did it go? Amazing. There were probably 300 people there, all learning how to recognize and prevent these scams. And get this, Detective Rodriguez told me they've identified and shut down 4 similar operations just this year, partly based on the patterns we documented. Dad would be so proud, Claire said softly. Rachel smiled, feeling the truth of those words in her bones. You know what? I think he would. I think he'd be proud that his money is helping protect other families, even if it's not in the way he originally imagined. And Rachel Sinclair, the woman who almost lost everything, was building a new life helping other victims reclaim theirs. She'd finally found her healing not through expensive retreats or spiritual manipulation, but through the simple, powerful act of trusting the people who truly loved her and transforming her pain into purpose. Rachel looked at her sister, realizing that all the healing she'd searched for had been right there all along in the fierce loyalty of family, the courage to ask for help when she needed it most, and the strength to turn her trauma into a force for protecting others. The inheritance her father had left wasn't just money, it was the security to take risks, to choose purpose over profit, and to honor his memory by becoming the person he'd always believed she could be. Thank you for listening until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving us a like. This helps us reach more people.